Yes, I killed him.
Who?
Well, the man who laughed at me for so many years. And to be honest, killing him wasn't even hard. But I never thought about how difficult it would be to get rid of a corpse. At first, I thought about quartering and then burning him, but I realized that cutting up his bones would be really hard. And so I opted to just burn the entire body. It was 11 p.m., and as I was about to carry his cold body into my car, my neighbor Margarita appeared. She asked me what I was doing, and all I could think of saying was that I was going to drive around for a bit to clear my head.
But so late at night?
She asked, a bit weirded out.
Yeah, I'm still very shaken after separating from Sergio.
And so she looked down and felt pity for me. She offered to help me with whatever I needed and let me go. The issue was that the corpse was still in the house behind the door. So I had to go into the car without the body, and then I set off to drive aimlessly for about 20 minutes. When I got back, Margarita and her husband were sitting in their front yard. They waved at me, so I smiled back at them and went back into my house. And the stench was unbearable. I never thought the body would start stinking so soon. I looked at the plastic bag on the floor containing the body of the one man I had loved more than any other. I had to get rid of his body soon. We humans really are so unimportant that when we die, we show what we truly are. Nothing but a bag of rotten flesh. I changed plans and went back to my original idea. Cut him up into pieces and then burned them. I decided I would get up in the morning and then go buy the tools that would help me quarter him. My alarm clock went off at 9 a.m. I opened my eyes and saw the sunlight shining through the windows. I took a shower, got dressed, and drove to the supermarket. Not many people were there at that time. Perfect, less witnesses. I decided to buy a chainsaw as well as a few wooden planks to not raise suspicion. You can never be too cautious. And once I had my new tools, I drove back home. My backyard was enclosed with tall walls, and the surrounding houses were not tall enough for the neighbors to be able to peek inside. Thus, I would have all the privacy I needed. The process was difficult at first. Having to see his face covered in blood, his pale lips, his silky hair, which I so loved to caress. But at least the most difficult part was done. All I had to do now was finish what I started. Later on, the chainsaw made a noise that really scared me at first. I thought it was gonna break. However, I then noticed that it could cut bones so well and fast that all my fears vanished. That chainsaw was even better than what the young man at the store who offered it to me said. Fortunately, I finished the job soon, and looking at all those human pieces, I thought about how much love ended up reduced to bone shards and chunks of flesh. I carefully picked up all the pieces and put them inside metallic paint buckets, which were empty. Then I added a bit of gasoline to each bucket and threw a lit match on each one of them. Then a thick smoke suddenly started emerging from the buckets, as well as a strong smell of gasoline mixed with paint. In that moment, I realized it wasn't a good idea to get rid of the corpse in my house. I feared that so much smoke would alert the neighbors. But then I had the perfect idea. I went to a room, took out all of Sergio's clothes from the wardrobe, and put them in the burning buckets. In that moment, someone rang the doorbell. I looked through the spy hole, and it was Margarita again. I quickly took off my dress and put on my pajamas before opening the door.
"Are you okay? We saw smoke coming from your backyard,"
Margarita asked.
"Yeah, thank you for asking, Margarita. The thing is that I hope you don't judge me for the terrible thing I just did."
My neighbor got tense and asked me what happened. For a moment, the idea of confessing to her my perfect crime appeared in my mind. Margarita, besides being my neighbor, was also a good friend. She had always been there to help me. Whenever I rushed out of the house crying after Sergio's abuses, she would invite me into her home and let me spend the night there. However, reason intervened, and I realized I would have to keep that secret in me until the day I died. I thought about how to get out of what I just said, and I told her. Well, since I was so mad at Sergio, I burned all of his clothes. I don't want to have anything in the house that reminds me of him. I need to rebuild my life. Margarita innocently rushed towards me to give me a big hug, and as always, she gave me words of encouragement. I couldn't help but cry, but I was happy. Sergio was dead. I would never suffer again because of him. I then asked Margarita to please leave me alone, telling her that I needed time for myself. And so I went back to my backyard and I sat back to relax and see the buckets burn. After a while, I realized it had been 2 days since I had eaten anything. I was so nervous and scared that I didn't feel hungry. So I went to the kitchen to make breakfast. And when I was about to enjoy my meal, someone rang the doorbell again, but I didn't feel like answering to anybody. I ignored the doorbell and enjoyed my breakfast sandwich. However, whoever was at the door didn't go away and kept on ringing the doorbell. I didn't even go to the front door to see who it was. I went to the backyard and picked everything up. I flushed in the toilet the remaining ashes that were still in the buckets, and I buried next to my rose bushes the bones that didn't turn to ash. I washed the paint buckets with dishwashing soap and the doorbell kept ringing. That's when I started getting worried. Did someone see me and call the police? The only person who saw me was Margarita, but she would never betray me, would she? So I decided to finally open the door and face whatever was on the other side. There was no evidence in the house. I cleaned everything thoroughly. And when I opened the door, I felt as if my soul abandoned my body and then came back. I felt as if the ground beneath me was breaking and I was left floating in the air. Drops of cold sweat quickly started running through my forehead. I couldn't speak a single word. I could only make mindless sounds. I felt all the blood in my body going to my feet and then rush up to my head as if my heart was trying to get out of my mouth. I stepped back and I saw Sergio come into the house without looking at me, as if nothing ever happened. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!